We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom.
Ćao! Upravo smo završili snimanje sa Nick Masonom iz grupe Pink Floyd i ekipa i ja smo još pod utjecajem. Ne pamtimo kada smo sreli takvu veliku zvijezdu, a tako skromnog i pristupačnog čovjeka. Pink Floyd je jedna od najvećih grupa svih vremena koji su ne samo ušli u rock istoriju, nego su definisali rock istoriju zajedno sa Beatlesima, Stonesima i njima sličnima. Ako ste fan, opustite se, uživajte, ne treba vam obrazovanje. A ako ne znate ko je Pink Floyd, natrag u školu. Idemo na muzičko. Okay, well, hello.
Hello.
I don't really know how to start this interview. I've got a legend sitting here next to me. If not the best drummer, then one of the best ever that graced the planet, and you are probably blushing.
Yeah.
Okay, right, Nick Mason, we're in your studio. How much time do you spend here?
Quite a lot. I'd have to say it's not really a studio, it's more a playroom.
Yes, okay. What's your favourite game here?
Well, I'm not really sure, but it's a very good place to keep a lot of the junk that has accumulated over many years. So it's full of old drum kits and musical bits and pieces and a lot of car things as well.
Yeah, like Pink Floyd memorabilia type of junk, you know, only that sort of thing. Now, what I'd like to do at the beginning of this is, because not everybody will know about Pink Floyd, because we have a whole new generation of kids who maybe didn't have access to those records. A whole of people also would love Pink Floyd and are just staring at that screen, probably hugging it as we speak. So I'd like to sort of do like maybe a chronological interview to talk about those days and go back probably with introducing the main members. That would include Sid and then David. So who is Pink Floyd?
Well, who is Pink Floyd is always a tricky question to answer because it's changed quite a lot over the years. But the original Pink Floyd was probably Roger, myself, Sid and Richard Wright. But Roger, myself and Richard met when we were students together in London. But the Pink Floyd as such didn't really exist until Sid joined. And he obviously was the main driving force for the first year or so. And then he disappeared more or less in a puff of smoke. And David joined. And with David, we did some, we had perhaps the sort of development years really. I mean, Sid was a sort of very specific style almost of Pink Floyd music, but with David's influence and with Roger then writing rather than Sid, we really sort of seemed to find our feet and decide what we were trying to do. And then finally Roger disappeared in a puff of smoke in 1983 or so, and David and I then went on and did 2 more albums after that.
You are in London, you met Roger at the Poly, you're studying architecture, then at some point you started to play some music, Sid comes in and you have a band with, there's a few other members who were mentioned actually in your book.
Clive Metcalf and Keith Noble and Bob Close, or Rado Close, who actually rather nicely, I know this is going out of chronology, but has reappeared.
It's all right, Nick, it's your interview. Well, I think we can tolerate. Can we tolerate that? Yeah? Okay, it's fine.
Well, it's radical rule breaking, you know, what we do.
Absolutely, we're so countercultural here. Wow.
But Bob has resurfaced recently and has actually done some work with David on his solo album, which I think is terrific, really nice.
So at the time, I think it's going back to, I think in my notes, around mid-60s, you were going to do a gig at the RAF base, and you were on the bill under the name of T-Set, and then shock horror, there's another T-Set. I mean, who would have thought that the name T-Set was like so funky? But back in the days, it was. And then what happens?
Well, I think that again, there were more than 2 T-Sets probably working in England at the time. It seemed like a fantastically witty name. But
why?
I think that perhaps just to explain it, the significance of tea might be relevant, which was, of course, a slang word for marijuana. Probably still is. I haven't heard it recently. But anyway, yes, so there were 2 bands on the bill with the same name, so we desperately needed a new name very quickly. And Sid came up with the concept of, or the name Pink Floyd, which was driven by 2 old blues players, Pink Anderson and Floyd Council, who were named on the back of a R&B album. Probably that we were sort of carrying around with us at the time.
And that's it. And a legend was born, like, out of,
well,
gosh, we haven't got a name.
They are. I mean, one has to remember that band names are simply registration plates. Actually, I suspect there's 200 other names that... I don't think the name does that much for a band. It's a nice thing to hang it on, but actually they are simply registration plates.
Okay. Now I like to sort of remember the times and your memories of 39 Stanhope Garden, because I think if we go down in rock history, and so there's probably people would say, well, Pink Floyd were formed there or something like that, that would probably be the place. And because you also mentioned that it was your you had rehearsals there. I mean, it was kind of, so what are your memories of that time?
Well, Stanhope Gardens was, it probably was our base where the band was formed, because it was a house that belonged to Mike Leonard, who was a lecturer at college and also someone who actually played in the band for a while. But he also was important in that he also worked at Hornsey College of Art, and so he was the guy who got us to go and play for the Light and Sound workshop there. And it was also the place where Sid, when he came to London, came to stay, and Roger and I had stayed there or were staying there. So it was the focal point.
In a ratio, studying, playing music, were you a good student?
Varied from student to student. In my case, probably 40-60 in favour of college. In Roger's case, probably 20-80 in favour of music. And in Rick's case, about 95-5.
So Roger was naughty.
No, he wasn't. He was actually, Roger was a very, very able architect, and he passed his sort of, I can't remember which year it was, but the sort of exams with flying colours. But his attitude was so. I think he probably frightened the other lecturers, so that they actually told him he had to go and work in an office for a year before he could come back.
Now, you say that actually one of the defining moments for you was going to see a Cream concert. Was it Eric Clapton would have been there at the time as well?
Yeah.
And there was a student gig kind of thing. You must say it was at the Poly.
Well, yeah.
So why was that so defining for you? Why was that?
I think because it was the moment when I thought that was the sort of band that I could really envisage being in and being happy being in, because it did have this, I mean, that was a trio, but it was the importance and the attention given to the music rather than the idea of short pop songs, which was still prevalent with radio play and so on.